exotropes, no problem.
Okay. Testing, testing. Seems to be working. This is not very high volume though. Hello! That's better, I have to shout. No. Pause, this kind of stuff. Okay. This is like a bidirectional microphone. It works pretty well, but usually I hold it closer to my mouth. That's better. Okay. Okay.
Your daughter, is she bored?
My daughter,
Yeah.
she has Wi-Fi, right? She has
That's
Wi-Fi. You have Wi-Fi? Then you're on board.
If you want something to drink, just shout, okay?
Now this thing is off the charts. See, let me just delete. Oh yeah, that's awesome. Okay. So, the problem with employment, the problem with making agreements in a room with people, is subtle. So, what I'll do is I'll compare. I'll look at, so ZeroMQ is a community that I've been working in for about 7 years now. And although I'm a programmer, I'm also the boss of the company, which paid for it in the beginning. So I actually had money at stake. That's like my long-term investment. And because of what I've been doing with software patents, I was really involved in community building. So I wanted to make ZeroMQ one of our community projects, which we've done with our patent friends a lot of, and we were getting good at that. I used to call this wiki turfing. So you put a big problem up there and make a big campaign, people would come in and they'd contribute and make things happen. So that was the idea with ZeroMQ. And the first versions of ZeroMQ were written by a small team in Bratislava, and they were very good developers, very, very smart people, led by Martin Sustrick, and they worked very, very hard at making this kind of quite original product, which was very fast. And this took 2 years and took all of my savings, and it was finished. And after 2 years I was like, okay guys, that's fantastic, this stuff is fantastic, but we can't really sell it, and it's really costing too much money, so I killed the project. I didn't kill the ZeroMQ project, I killed the paying for people project. And we made it much more aggressively open source and threw the issue tracker up, and so this is now all public. So about half of the team just stayed on the project as open source, and just began playing with it. And other people came in and took off as a project, and so we went into making this a real open source project. And then over time evolved through different ways of working. Now in the beginning of that, the original developers were still very, very dominant in this project. That's the doorbell. And they would make these, how can I call them, secret deals. They would go off and they would drink beer, and I would do this with them. I would do exactly the same thing. I know exactly what they're thinking. They'd go off and they would have this great discussion about where things should go, and they would have vision, and they would discuss, and they would hammer out details, and they would start writing some code, and they would go through this whole long discussion of trade-offs and what they should do, what they should not do, and then they would decide something, then they would make it, and then they would publish this code. And they wouldn't even document their thinking process, they would just publish the results and say, we've made this fantastic change. And it was usually very interesting as a change. Like, the thought process had obviously been done by clever people, but it systematically was unexpected for the users and not what they wanted. So there was always this kind of second phase of convincing them to actually that they wanted it. That was my job, was to sell people on the new features in ZeroMQ and explain why their old stuff had gone away and why this new stuff had come up. And I'm pretty good at that, so people kind of accepted that this was okay. Version 2 has broken all stuff in version 1, but yeah, it must be better. And then version 3 broke all stuff in version 2, yeah, it must be better. And then version 3.1 broke all stuff in version 3, and this went on. And at a certain point in time, we had version 2.0, version 2.1, version 3.0, version 3.1, and version 4, all with different APIs, different protocols. And all because of this kind of discussing going on in the background by people. And so we realized a number of things. First of all, that allowing people to go off and make big changes was a really big problem. And it really took a long time to get this kind of new versions of ZeroMQ to be stable and to be usable and ship them. It took like 6 months or a year sometimes. And you'd have 2,000 lines of code, and they would have 50 bugs in there, but serious long-term bugs that took ages to get out. And they would sometimes, they still show nowadays sometimes all the bugs that appear. And I think if you have old bugs in code, that's a very bad sign. Like you expect to find new bugs where you've written something and that's it. They should go away, that should be solid and stable. Like this table doesn't have an old bug in it, right? It's stable, and it's always stable. So we slowly switched to this kind of process where we banned people from just making changes, and we asked them to always start with a problem. And that's the communication style. We said, okay, from now on, we don't care about, we're not going to go into this whole selling people in why they want this change. We're going to discuss problems. So before you make a change, you must come with a problem. And the problem we can argue. And we can say it's a valid problem, it's not a valid problem. So for example, I have this belief that the code base is too complex. So I have to remove some functionality to make the code base simpler. That's a claim of a problem, it's a statement. Now somebody may come and say, okay, the code base is too complex, I have a different solution. I can refactor like this and make it cleaner without making it any less functional. So you can agree on the problem, have different solutions. What you can't allow is that the people take a problem, claim it, and then solve it without having anyone in between being able to criticize that chain. And when you work in the same space and you're talking about stuff together, what you do is you shortcut that process. So you take problems which you don't even argue, you solve them, and then you try and sell the solution, and you stop anyone criticizing that. So actually, you're not doing any science on that, right? What scientific method would be, a problem is a hypothesis. You try and disprove it by giving it to people and say, prove me wrong. If no one can prove me wrong, the problem exists. Make a solution, hypothesis number 2, try and prove it wrong. And if it's good, you keep it, if it's wrong, you throw it out. That's science. And for that to work, you have to have small problems and small solutions which can be understood and criticized cleanly by people, and where you have a debate at all those points in the process. And if you don't allow the debate, you don't do science, you do a kind of a magical thinking, a kind of a voodoo thinking, religious kind of thing. Trust me, I know this shit, and you can't trust people. Like the claim that trust me is a bad claim. And so now, here's the problem: if you're an employee in an office, and whether your office is at home or whether your office is in someone's building, doesn't really matter, then you're not in this kind of challenge cycle. You're in a cycle of do what I ask because somebody wants what you want to make, and that's it. And possibly argue on how to make this stuff, but no one's going to argue whether we need it. And if they do that too often, they'll be seen as a problem. And they'll be solved by being removed out. The customer wants this feature. But why do they want the feature? That's rarely asked. And if you do ask it, you become irritating. You become your latency goes up, and you start breaking the process. And that's because a traditional company has this structure where you don't think in two directions, you only think in one direction. The structure is basically a hierarchy where power comes in and tells people what to do, and effort goes back up and becomes profits. And most employees live in these kind of pyramid structures.
But do you think that one must be self-employed to work like this? In this,
not necessarily.
A little problem and solve it, and then the next problem and solve it?
No, because there are companies which work like that. People are employees, but those companies are very, very unusual, but they do work like that. And where they, for example, you all know these companies, but you just don't know that they work like this internally. So like, can you give me one product that you use every day for your work, which has almost no extra complexity, and which never crashes, and which is almost 100% on what you need, and almost before you know you need it, they have it there.
Not my editor.
GitHub, for example, right? It's very close to that. And why? Because GitHub internally works like that. GitHub is a very, very thin management layer, and GitHub employees, they work on stuff that they like and they try to push it out, and when it gets traction, they keep investing in there. And people don't say you must do this. There's an internal market for improvements to the platform, and it gets pushed out to different kinds of users until it goes to the public. And what you see in GitHub in the public UI has gone through already a lot of internal checks and arguments and criticism, and it survives that and comes out. And some, other products have tried that, like Gmail did that for a while, but they didn't do it. Google doesn't do it anymore. Google is a pyramid structure again. And so, like, for me, the future of business is this. There is no business. I mean, there is no company with a big structure. There is a network of smaller organizations which work together and which are continually challenging each other and competing at different levels, which is very different.
Is the world ready for this in a larger scale?
Well, of course, the world does this already. I mean, if you look at any really, really large-scale industry, it's how it works. Like, look at the food industry. Of course, you have some food manufacturers or very large companies, but if you look at the food service industry, restaurants, bars, you don't see large pyramids. What you see are millions of small companies working in supply networks, and mostly lots of independent contractors, owning their own business. And it's very successful and very scalable and gives you very good value for money. And in fact, you see the biggest disasters when you have large organizations trying to work in this. They make, I eat a hamburger now and then from McDonald's, I will do it. A €1 cheeseburger is really attractive, but it's still borderline toxic. I know that. I know I'm poisoning myself. It's not really what I would consider food, it's more like entertainment than food. But so we do this in many industries.
It's the promise of food.
Sorry?
It's the promise of food.
It's a promise of food, yeah. It's a reminder of food or something. It's suited for that. I mean, it should be perfect. All that's missing is the culture of finding paying work and being able to survive, and that's coming. It's just very, very difficult.
Yeah, but that's what I meant. Is the world ready for this on a large scale? Because you have to twist the mind to trust that this is a way that could work.
So you are a CEO, right?
Yes, but my company only has one employee. That's me. So it's
okay. So my next question would be like,
yes,
how do your employees work?
But the way I work is that when I have, I'm actually going to start a company, but I'm doing this in a different way. So the way I work with Imatics is that when I have a project, I bring in people from other areas, especially because the projects we do are technically very difficult. We don't sit there and make websites. We solve infrastructure problems, so they're difficult. And typically I need people with different kinds of expertise. And they're usually the kind of person who are anyway self-employed. Because they tend to be very specialized and they tend to be very, I wouldn't say very expensive, they tend to be very determined in their particular area. So they're not kind of, attached to anything. They're attached to themselves and their ego and their ability to do certain stuff. And they're often in the community, or people I know from other places. And we form these groups, we work on projects, and then we go back to what we were doing before, like making a movie or something. It's kind of similar. And that works fine. It's actually very simple. It's not so profitable, because you make more money on employees. They're much more profitable. But it's much more flexible like that. Yeah.
But GitHub is not open source, isn't it?
It's not open source, no. It's true.
So you think if they would open source it, they would be much more successful?
I mean, Git is open source, obviously. And GitHub is successful because, I believe it's successful because it has a very, very good internal organization as a company. So it's effectively open source internally. I say no one owns any of the code in GitHub. Like if you're an engineer in GitHub, you take some stuff, you make an improvement, no one's going to say you can't do that. Which is what open source is mostly about, is being able to remix. Maybe it's a smaller community than the whole world, but it's already a lot of people and the competition for GitHub was really, really tragic. I mean, SourceForge, sweet lord, you know. I mean, Google Code. I mean, really, really tragic. So it didn't have to be dramatically excellent to be successful. It had to be just, you know, reasonably cheap and accurate and solve the biggest problems, which were, you know, what does GitHub do that's most impressive is it supports the flow that they use internally, which is the fork and pull request merge, which is the right flow. It's what we do as well, and it's a very, very good flow, and it works very well. And that has to be there in the application, which it is. So the open source is not a essential criteria, but it has to be remixable within a certain community. Like if you have a bunch of DJs making music, as long as they can remix each other's music, that's sufficiently open source. It doesn't have to be on the website so that anyone can download it. It can be closed within that community. Right. So it's about escaping one room or something. It's not about becoming a global thing. It's big enough to escape certain constraints. Gets in the way, doesn't it? It's amazing how a laptop breaks the table surface. Yes. So I call my company a post-corporate corporate. It's a post-corporate corporation. It means nothing. Now that it's being recorded, everyone is very shy.
But okay, the problem with self-employment is that, or at least the upside, if I'm employed in a software company, I can program all the time. I'm there, right? I'm a programmer. I enjoy programming. I want to construct software. And when I'm self-employed and want to sell a service of programming software, most of the time I don't program. I try to find people that I can sell my services to. I have to do taxes. I have to do
taxes.
So I don't have to do taxes.
Don't make a profit, that's all. You don't have to do taxes, of course.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
But I can reprogram all the time. When I'm employed, I have a bit of security, at least in Europe, and I can concentrate on what I enjoy and what I can do with this program.
I didn't say it was easy. But it's like having children. Who here has children? No, you have kids. You have kids. No one has kids? You have kids. Huh? I'm the only guy. You have kids?
Not yet.
None of you have kids. Oh God.
But they're planning.
So kids. You have 1, 2, 3. Okay, so you will know what I'm talking about. Kids are like an essential thing. Not for everybody, but generally it's a very fulfilling. When you have children, you become part of this kind of parent mafia. And you're like, and you're kind of like, no, and you're like, yeah. But it's not easy. I don't mean that they're difficult. I mean, she's lovely, yeah? Not a very good co-pilot sometimes because she's playing on her telephone. But kids are not easy. Kids are hard work, and kids make you poor, and kids disturb your sleep, and kids take your time away from programming also. But that's just the way it is, you know. Sometimes life is difficult. Sometimes it's necessary to be difficult. Sometimes the easy things aren't the good things. And maybe being able to program all the time is actually very bad for you. Think about that. Maybe it's like crack cocaine for the wrong part of your brain, and you're like, you know, just on drugs. The drugs are being able to make code, but no one actually really cares about it. It's important to play, but not all the time. I think there's like this cycle of living professionally, which goes through like different phases, where at some points you're learning from other people, and at some points you're playing so you can experiment without having to be, you know, punished for your mistakes. Then you actually work and make people, you know, make profit from your work, and then you go and teach other people, and you come back and learn new stuff, and that cycle goes on. So the work is part of it. It can't be all of it, and the play cannot be all of it. Nor can the learning be all of it. It has to be like this kind of continuous cycle. And I think that's important, and I think that's why, you know, doing taxes is important. Then you want to reform the tax system. This stuff sucks. Electronic taxes, yeah. Or you pay an accountant, which is what I do.
Okay.
Yeah.
A question. You told open source, and very frequently you told community. How to build a community?
How to build a community?
How did you build your community?
So I actually wrote at some point like a recipe for building a community. Like I have like an instruction manual how to build a community, which is in my book. This is like a sound effect on a radio show, you know. Every time I say in my book, the radio show goes ding ding. So in this book, right, which is Culture and Empire, available on Amazon.com for $25.95 or something like that. I don't know. In chapter 2 of this book, it actually goes about building community. There's like a toolbox of tools here. And it starts with like, you need, I'll go through this list, it's not that long, you have like a strong mission. There must be a reason for the group to exist. So, especially, this is also slightly gender biased, okay? This is not going to work for women quite as well. Women don't get up in the morning because they have like a mission, but men do. We like missions, we like impossible missions, and the more crazy the mission, the better. Like, you can't just be like, we're gonna, go and hunt rabbits. You gotta say, we're gonna hunt dangerous elephants. The last on earth. Murderous, giant elephants. Everyone's like, yeah, let's do that. I mean, okay, that's how men are. Okay, we're kind of that stupid. It's gonna be easy to join the group. So it's gonna be like free access. If you charge people, okay, elephant hunt, $100 each. No one's gonna join. So you want free volunteers. Community is volunteer work, so you want people to come in for free. It's not really volunteer work, but it's close enough. So it's going to be free. It's going to be transparent. If your community is run by an elite who hide the decision making, then you will just lose people. They will just say, nah, we don't like this. So you have to be really transparent, and you've got to be able to show that the process is, anyone can participate and it's free and flat and fair. You can't have people being paid to contribute, otherwise you get professionals coming in and they destroy it. People can be paid for their job, but they can't be like, it's like having paid Wikipedia editors. It does not make good results. Because if you're paid, you're working for a client whose interests are hostile to the community. Okay. It's going to be fully remixable, so anything you make will be remixable. Community is about sharing knowledge. That means taking stuff, improving it. Like a hackerspace, you're basically taking each other's works and ideas and improving them over time. If you try to own what you make and make it a personal thing, then you've lost it. Community will die. Then, very clear and good rules. If you have no rules, you have chaos. If you have bad rules, you have dictatorship. So you have to have this kind of very good rules that keep the community healthy without becoming, And rules are very difficult. So writing rules is one of my specialities. A good authority to enforce the rules. If you have good rules that no one enforces, So, for example, the food industry is very heavily regulated. If you make pizza out of wood, you get into trouble. Because somebody has written a rule saying pizza may not be made out of wood. They tried that, and then the police come and they arrest you. That's good, right? What do you want? So you can't just say, well, we have no rules. You must have rules. They must be well written, and they must stop certain kinds of cheating, and they must be enforced. Then you want no tribalism, so you want no notion that you belong to the group. So you don't want to be part of the group, like, if you want to join 2 hackerspaces, that's fine, right? You don't belong to a hackerspace. But people try that sometimes, like, you are part of our group, you are now a gang, and that's just bullshit. It does not make community. And then you have self-organization. People have to be able to organize themselves. If someone is in charge saying, you do this, you do that, it's not a community. You're back to this kind of pyramid structure of authority, and it's bogus. Tolerance. So how you embrace conflict. Do you like conflict or do you hate conflict? You should be very tolerant. You should be able to measure your progress, so you want some way to people to contribute and see that they're actually doing something useful. So, for example, in GitHub we see, commit messages or number of pull requests or whatever it is. It's very tangible if you want to measure. So a bit of a game like that. Some high scoring. Decentralization is very important. I'm a great believer in having people of different cultures and different time zones and different educations seeing problems and coming with different solutions, which you only get if you're in a different space and time. If you're all from Bochum, you look at the problem, you all see the same solution. And it's very important for communities to survive over time, to have this kind of diversity of vision and thought and perspective that you get from being spread out. Free workspaces, so you can come and make new projects for free. Easy to learn, not a big burden. That's why I don't like C++, because it makes it very hard to start learning, obviously. Very positive, regular structure, sense of humor, minimalism, and some money. Not too much, but some kind of a funding model. And that's kind of the basic, and then I have all examples explained how to make this. So, here, I give you a present to this hackerspace. No, hang on a second. We have two communities here. Forget it. But yeah, I mean, you can do this, and you can, if you have a problem which is interesting, then you can build structure around that. People will join in, and they will eventually make it happen. But you have to also work very hard at it yourself, unfortunately. You can't just say, hey, a cause, and then go on holiday and come back. Nothing happens. So EdgeNet, for example. So EdgeNet is actually, many people have, it's also this book, but at the end of this book, the good book of this book. I put it here, it's like, if you look at the internet, then what you see is a very strong control of the infrastructure, the servers, and how we talk to the servers. So you see a very strong ownership of all of the main platforms where we put all of our knowledge, whether it's Facebook or Google or Yahoo or Microsoft or the cloud or whatever it is, it's there, owned by somebody who's not us. And how we get there is also owned by somebody who's not us. And the problem with that is that both of these, you're being recorded, right? All of your jingle jangle is being on make sure it rhymes. And if you have any kind of care about privacy and about being able to even, make political statements, then this becomes a very big concern. So even political opposition is very difficult if you believe that your government is spying on you and not afraid of using a certain level of force to keep the system the way it is, at least, right? Probably in any country in the world. And so EdgeNet is a way to try to answer that problem. It's just one possible answer, but what it really is, it's more of a statement of the problem so community will build around it. So it's more like I want to make the problem very clear and talk about the problem and make sure that the people understand that there are solutions here and here and here, and then go off and make them. So it's not a piece of software. It's a statement of a problem. Right? So I want to build community rather than make software. I'm also making software, but that's not the main focus. Blank faces.
So what does EdgeNet, or what actually is EdgeNet?
Well, look, let's assume that you all have a mobile phone, right? And everyone has mobile phones? Everyone has a mobile phone running Android, or sometimes iOS, but running an operating system, right? With TCP, and with Wi-Fi, and with CPUs, and with memory. And some of us still have flip phones, but they're quite unusual and quite rare. So most of us have stuff like this, and this now costs $50 or €50, right? This is very cheap. So this is the future of computing for at least a large part of the market. This gets cheaper and cheaper and cheaper, and more of these. Okay, so these are interesting because they are fully powerful computers that today only talk to broadband mobile connections, at the very best. Maybe local Wi-Fi, and that's it. They don't talk to each other, but they should. And to make these talk to each other, you have to solve like 3 or 4 problems, which are difficult to solve, but not impossible. And EdgeNet is those problems solved. So there, for example, how to discover other mobile devices. So the reason for mobile devices is because these are basically disposable, they are always charged, they are always working, they are always present, they have a camera, they have a screen, they can do anything, then they're powerful enough. In fact, they all have excess power not being used. So there are a whole number of interesting use cases, in other words, interesting things you can do with these that no one is really doing, not they're trying to do, but it's difficult to do. And EdgeNet is like a certain way of doing those things. So for example, sharing information locally. Let's say you want to record this session and have this on every smartphone at the same time, so that we're sharing the recording as we go. It's doable, right? It's just some Wi-Fi peering and something. What happens if you walk away and come back? What happens if you reboot your phone halfway through? So it's not quite that simple, but it's still just, you could almost do it today. Right? How about sharing some photographs? Everyone gets that. Or how about now you share photographs, now you cross town, go to outside of Bochum, are you still connected or not? How does that work? You switch from Wi-Fi, you switch from local something to something else. Okay. If you can solve that, then in any city you have 1 million of these things running around. You have a lot of people with smartphones. Houses are full of these. Tablets all over the place. So you have a very big infrastructure, you have a very big set of devices that are always connected, something always powered on, that can talk and can share information. Then you can rebuild intranets on top of that. It's not really mesh networking, because mesh networking is assumes that you're routing stuff through hops. It doesn't work very well when things are moving around all the time. It doesn't actually work very well, and it doesn't work because the people that make these phones don't like mesh networking, so they stopped it happening. Right. So mesh networking has been around. Who remembers the one laptop per child, the green PC? Yes? Okay, so the OLPC had a mesh networking protocol, and it did mesh networking, right? How long ago is that now? Yeah, it's a long time ago, and that's in the Linux kernel. 802.11s. It's been there for a long time. I know the guys who made it, and it's not on any mobile phone. And why? That'd be really nice to have it, but it's not there because the guys that make the chipsets for this do not like mesh networking. It's very, very bad for their customers' business. So it will never happen on mobile phones. Right? You'll never get consumer devices of any scale with mesh networking. It will not happen. I'd make a bet on that. So you have to make your own something which replaces mesh, something like that. Yeah.
So the mesh networking of the one laptop per child use Wi-Fi, or did they use a special?
So the 802.11s it took about 10 years for the original spec to become a proper standard. So 802 is the Wi-Fi working group, whatever they do, that governs the framing and the framing between nodes. And mesh networking is so peer-to-peer, so a node talks to node directly, there's no access point.
No.
And it then does routing between nodes. So you can address nodes by going hop, hop, hop and talking to them hop, hop, hop. So you can find nodes routing tables. And it uses Wi-Fi, but not with an access point.
Okay, so you can repurpose the hardware.
Yes, the same hardware, the same radios, of course, that's right. And
Okay.
there's a kind of a cheap form of mesh that came out called Wi-Fi Direct, which you all know about. Wi-Fi Direct is supported by most manufacturers, but it's only one hop, there's no routing. And it's slow, it's not using all of the capacity, but it's kind of like a one hop mesh. Also no access points. So using access points is kind of difficult. We do that in some cases, but it's not easy. So for EdgeNet, I want to use Bluetooth for discovery, because Wi-Fi is really nasty for discovery, unfortunately. We tried that, it doesn't work very well. What we did was we used UDP broadcasts, and if you control the network, that's fantastic. If you go like we went to FOSDEM, which is a big conference in Brussels, and we tried using our mesh networking, our EdgeNet, and it just doesn't work. The hotspots do not do UDP broadcasts, so nothing works. It's just end of story. Yeah. We made a number of prototypes for EdgeNet, which are quite nice.
Is it more about preventing companies and governments to switch us off, or is your vision a real alternative to the internet?
It's not switching off, it's not that people are going to be switched off. The problem is that someone else decides what's acceptable speech.
Yeah.
And sooner or later that person decides that what's acceptable is what makes money for them, and that's nothing else. No, that's it, period. It becomes a question of profit. And so there's this, this is absolutely guaranteed, it's absolutely guaranteed that you get this coalition between the state and certain parts of business and certain political lobbyists to turn free speech into profit. The two are in conflict, and the profit part will destroy it, basically, especially free speech, which is dangerous to politicians, will become a problem. You already see this in cases, for example, in France, for many years it's been illegal to use a voice over IP on mobile phone internet. They were allowed to ban voice over IP applications, which is because it's bad for their business. This is now, the European Union has now made this kind of banning illegal. You know, you can't discriminate different kinds of traffic. But if you allow the carriers to decide what kind of traffic is going to be happening, and eventually they will, then you will also start banning political speech, criticism of politicians, I don't know what, reporting of certain kinds of events. You'll have like, there will be no reporting of this kind of event or that kind of event, and you end up losing control of the political process. And we know how this happens, and we know where it goes. Eventually, you'll have people with very dangerous points of view to get power and stop people fighting them to get it back. So that's why it's important to have at least channels for free speech. And free speech means anything in my book. It's not, I mean, you have to accept the bad with the good, but and there are, of course, we all know of things like Tor, but even Tor is very delicate. It's very delicate. Like, there's many attacks on Tor, and they can be very effective. So this is a very difficult. This is only one small puzzle. I mean, it's very part of a big puzzle. It's like, how do you even secure this? If people don't have put stuff on the firmware, how do you secure that? Well, you have to make an open source phone where everything is open source. You have to remove the SIM card. You can't. The SIM card is not open source. So you can do this almost if you have no SIM card anymore. So there's still a lot of stuff to be done there. No.
Well, you believe that the solution here is technology and not political.
That's the way we seem to do it.
Okay.
I mean, we're always fighting technology with technology, yeah, in our civilization. That's how we've always done it. It's like, what's the solution to the church controlling and licensing who could print a book? It's technology. It's just making books elsewhere, making them cheaper, and flooding the market with imported books from Holland. I don't know what it is, but something. And if the Dutch church bans books, you bring in books from America, but it's coming in with cheaper and cheaper books until the church gives up, and then politics can follow. Politics comes from economics. It doesn't. Politics emerges from economic power, I think. So yeah, I think the solution is technology and the cost of technology, and how much it costs to make different kinds of systems. And there are many people working on this. I mean, if you look at something like Bitcoin, you see very clearly how technology is making it possible to compete with very large existing systems.
Okay, but ultimately, at Congress last year in Hamburg, there was some similar discussion now that it's a hackers, more than a kind of hacker conference, or the one more concentrated on cryptography is the solution, right. Strong cryptography against the NSA, against whoever. And there, the end of discussion was always that the cryptography in itself could be banned. And so the solution can be technology, but political.
Right, yeah. Solution is technology, but only up to a point. I mean, like, you can... it's like, what's the solution to someone breaking into your house?
The cops.
Well, yes, but first of all, you lock your doors, right? And then you put in stronger doors. And then you put in 2 doors. And then you lock your windows. And then you change your keys every 6 months. And you keep doing this. Now, if the cost of a door is €1,000,000, you won't change your door. And if the cost of changing your keys is too high, you won't change your keys. So the first thing you do is you raise the cost of the burglar by making some kind of an asymmetric investment in security, which of course you can always break, but the cost becomes higher. It's always a game of cost. You can never make a secure system. The concept makes no sense. Even the army tries that, it doesn't work. You cannot make a secure system by definition, but you make a system which is very expensive to break into, and where the advantage of mass surveillance goes away, at the very least, right? That's why I like EdgeNet, because EdgeNet you have this thing which is, you can still break into it, but if you're off the line and you're communicating with somebody in a room, how can you monitor that communication? You have to actually be in the room to do it, which is very, very expensive. Whereas if I send someone a photograph on the internet, you can monitor it from anywhere in the world, and you can get the same results. So it's about the cost of this conflict on both sides. And I think technology is very important in bringing the cost way down. Yeah, very important. It's how every war is won eventually, is by making cheaper and cheaper weapons. You know. It's also in my book. And you see this very often with big empires, how they collapse, is that they depend on technology which starts as being a monopoly and is very successful and becomes more and more uncompetitive, and just lose out in not being able to compete with the poor people who can make the same weapons eventually. Yeah. So technology is the answer, but only insofar as it represents cheaper technology. Cheaper technology. Yes. It's a good book. Yeah, no one's read this book yet. Seriously, and it's even free online. I downloaded that thing on PDF, on browser. You didn't read it. I'm shocked. I'm shocked.
I think I read the first 2 chapters.
Here.
The PDF file.
It's a present for me. Because you admit having read the first 2 chapters.
Is the book signed?
I will
Please,
sign
10
it.
minutes ago,
Could you please to sign to him?
I have more, and I will sign them. I will sign them, yes.
Thank you very much.
Because in this book, basically what I'm just explaining is how, it's not that I have the answers, just that I have certain stories which may or may not be good answers, I don't know. But it's how technology changed our world, and how the internet, specifically the internet, changed our world. I mean, we came from this past where we had to actually go and work in offices with people that we didn't really like just to get a paycheck. Wow. To a future where all that went away. Yeah. And all the other kind of stuff in there. And so many things changed, and it's very hard to see where we are because we grew up with the changes, so they just seem normal to us, like, who still uses a modem to dial in? No, but there's a modem here somewhere, right? It's still going. It's still doing exactly the same thing, but it's kind of slightly weirder, and slightly more digital, and it's less noise, and it's a very small little modem like this. But it's still there's still serial controllers in there, I'm sure. That's how you talk to the SIM card. And yet, we saw this going from big boxes to going to nothing at all, over and over again, right? And we just internalized it all, forgot about it. But everything we did changed, somehow.
Do you think EdgeNet will be powerful enough for day-to-day communication, or just for pushing forward the truth?
Well, I think what we are understanding is that the very concept of communication is plastic. There are very different kinds of communication, and it's not as simple as, as I explained. When I want to work with you, to be in the same room and to discuss stuff with you and make stuff with you is actually not the best way to work with somebody, especially in knowledge processing, right? And it's a very strange thing. The communication is changing. The very concept is changing and becoming much more organic and much less intense. And we used to have this fear of information overload, where we would have so much information that we could never process it. But that's just that's a childish view of information. Information always comes through layers and layers and layers, and we speak to people who give us these synthetic results of layers and layers and layers of processing, and it's chains. So you follow someone on Twitter who is already processing a whole bunch of information, and you're getting stuff from them that you value, and we do this over and over again. So how much do you need to support that kind of model? Not a lot. Not a lot. In the end, what you want is you want some asynchronous feeds of information that are useful and important and able to send some stuff on, and that's pretty much it. I could do most of my work by having, one list of pull requests to merge, some problems coming in from people, and one way to send my source code into projects. All asynchronous, and like 3 flows, and I can do all my work with that. And then I need some time for beer and discussion separately, which doesn't need technology at all. And this notion that I have to see all my projects and know what they are, and all that knowledge is just bullshit. That's all just overload for my brain. It doesn't help at all. I don't want to have any planning. I don't want to have budgets. I don't want to have my projects turned into numbers. They're not. What they are people with problems that I can solve and that it's worth solving. The problems can be stated very quickly, and solutions or patches which are quite short can be sent up. And as long as we're able to respond within a few hours, that's sufficient. That's kind of how things have gone, at least in my work in open source. Look, if I look at my GitHub, I look at my email. In my email I see here, well, I'm on roaming, I have nothing. Today's a boring day. This morning I had 12 pull requests from people. They're all working all last night, I don't know why, maybe it's the American time zone. And I'm merging some pull requests, people have merged them, I'm looking at them. I don't review the code, I'm just like merge, 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 merge. Oh, I didn't get there first. Damn, I'm second. The goal is to be the first person to merge. But I don't review the code. I don't even check if it builds. If it fails, that will be fixed later. I don't care, I just merge, merge, merge. And that's my workflow. And I make some changes, push them, someone else merges them later. Right, so the communication model is completely changed. And that works really well. It's not like some kind of a second-hand, strange. It's actually a really powerful way of working. Right? So the tools don't have to be that huge. They can be very focused, but they must be able to deal with kind of. I think the future seems to be very, very networked and lots of very social, where we work with people on small things and work flows up and down and these networks. Yeah.
Question about community and technology.
Yes.
Do you believe that someday will be established a community which will be able to design to lead from idea to implementation, for instance, a telephone or a mobile device which will work in mesh technologies, as you taught?
Well, look, I mean, this device here, right? This telephone, this is built in China.
Yes, for sure.
Okay, so now a lot of the stuff in there comes from other places. Like a lot of the chipsets designs have come from America or from Scandinavia or something. A lot of very old technology in there. But most of this is made by communities in China who use a model of knowledge sharing. It's called Shanzai. And they have this model in, I think it's in Shenzhen, I think it's in the south of China, where they basically share the bill of materials for devices. They used to be copycats. They would make fake iPhones and so on. They still do this. But their trick is that they will share the ingredients for their hardware. So you can get the list of parts. And you can take it, you can modify it and make your own. And they have production runs of 50,000 or 5,000, and they can make a new device in 2 days. So it's extremely aggressive automation. All design is computerized. They produce everything with 3D printing for the cases. They will go off and get someone else to make the cases, blah, blah, blah. So the outcome is this phone which gets sold by some French company. But there's a supply chain of maybe 200 small Chinese companies behind that. That's a community. It is a community. And the community is extremely open as long as you speak Chinese, and as long as you don't have to be of any particular, no one cares who your dad is or how much money you have. As long as you're willing to share, as long as you play by the rules, you can get any of these phones, of these clone phones, and you can get the list of parts, and you make your own, but you must share. If you try to steal the ideas, you get kicked out. And the result is that this basically has become the dominant way of making, with the exception of the Samsungs and the Apples, is like the dominant way of making smartphones. So you still have to get all the legacy technology from somebody. But if you look at how this is made, it's a whole system of little companies all making very specific pieces, and it all comes together, boom, 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 makes a final product. Yeah. And then someone will still make like cases and all other stuff that adds on top. So it's a community. It's grown. It's not one company making these things. And when individual companies make these things, they tend to be more expensive. And I worked for Samsung for 18 months. I saw how they work, how they make mobile phones. And they do make very nice mobile phones. But they do it by basically brute force. They do it by brute force. They do it by having, tens of thousands of engineers who are pushed into they're bullied into trying every possible combination until something kind of comes out. They do have competition, but they will say okay, 3 divisions will make a robot vacuum cleaner. 4 divisions, we need to make a robot vacuum cleaner. So they'll both make robot vacuum cleaners, and then they come up and they see these 4 different designs. They're all weird. There's like lots of eyes and arms and little sensors, like all covered in sensors. And that one has like no sensors. And they try these, and they're like, okay, you're fired. You're fired. Those 2 go to market. They go and sell them in Korea, and all the Koreans who love Samsung, they all just buy that one. It's like, yeah, I buy that one. Get that one. And they go through this process like 6 times, and then they do it international. And out comes a decent kind of Samsung vacuum cleaner. But it's gone through these cycles of almost. It's like, how did the Russians become, capable of fighting the Germans at Stalingrad? Because they first went to fight the Finnish and they got beaten up by the Finnish. And all of the really shitty soldiers got killed, and the ones that survived were decent soldiers. And then the Russian army was able to fight the Germans. That's how Samsung does it, right? Well, this is a more efficient way of making mobile phones, how the Chinese do it. And it makes much more innovation, much more quickly, and it's much less bloodshed.
But Samsung still owns the market, right? And Apple and
not really.
other companies.
No, they own parts.
At least in Germany and Europe.
Look at the really big markets. Like look at the Chinese market, or look at Africa, or look at Latin America, and you will see the Chinese mobile phones everywhere, pretty much. This one is a really nice phone. It's 4 cores. It's really good. Hasn't broken in about 6 months. It's 120 euros including VAT. Okay. So that seems very hard for Samsung to compete with in the end. It can compete for a while, but in the end, I can buy 4 of these for one Samsung. And America is not a good market. The American market is very corrupt. It's very corrupt. It's not a free market at all. In the American market, basically, the operators will sell you the most expensive handset they can, because then you're obliged to pay the most in your monthly bill. So they have this very strange anti-economic model, which punishes cheap handsets.
So again, to the community.
Back to
You thought in the China exists community of engineers, or small companies which produce cheap mobile phones. Okay, why this community still does not introduce to the market a mobile phone which works in mesh technology?
It's a good question. I think that maybe they will eventually do it. That may be where it comes from, and I think you might have seen something there which I didn't see. Today what happens is that the chipsets are still made by very few companies, like Broadcom, and they don't like mesh, that's for sure. We actually tried to introduce mesh in Samsung for a project there, a bit like an Edgenet kind of project, and it just couldn't work. And the reason why the certain companies can monopolize the chipset is because A, it's very expensive to make the fabrication of those chips, and B, there are still patents on all of those things. That combination stops competition at that level. And that may change or may not change, I don't know. Yeah, I mean, there has been some small companies making mesh products, but they are very rare. They're very rare.
Steve Jobs wanted to have the iPhone, wanted to make the iPhone complete mesh.
Well,
So
you have to make money from it somehow, you see. So like, I mean, Apple are very good in Wi-Fi, and they've been working very hard on making their devices talk to each other, but only when it's in a home and when they can control it. And they do this all stuff, they make all this stuff almost non-standard and proprietary.
I saw you are making some research on psychopaths. Is there something we have to learn about it?
That's my favorite topic, psychopaths.
Really? Okay,
Yeah,
I'm interested.
Definitely. But because, look, I mean, it's easy to talk about community or working together, but we forget that not everybody has the same interests. And it's very easy to be optimistic about technology and say we can build this world, all kinds of stuff, and blah, blah, blah. And this is how the internet was built, on optimism. But the problem is that as soon as there is money on the table, somebody will take it. And they won't care what the cost is to the owner. See, that's the thing, is that most of us have this kind of mechanism of empathy where when we do something, we always measure the cost to other people. And if it's something bad, we feel guilty. If it's some cost, if it's a big cost, we're like horrified. We can't do that. Like, you know, taking a sweet from a child, you know that the cost is very high to a child, you couldn't do that. So it's very hard to be a criminal if you have empathy. We talk about victimless crimes, you know, stealing from an insurance company, because it's like a way to be criminal without having empathy cost. And we have empathy because it makes us better at being social. If you don't have empathy, you can't collaborate. So you have this default human view of the world as consisting of other people, and where your value comes from their measurement of your value. So you want to work hard to make people happy and like you, otherwise you feel that you have no value, and you feel insecure. But as soon as you have that kind of system, this is like basic game theory, the system makes money, then you can make more money by cheating the system. Pretending to like people, pretending to be good, but actually being bad at taking whatever you can. And this is basic game theory, and it's like, this is why I say you can't ever get rid of bad lawyers. They're just there by definition. All you can do is make the money less visible. You can eliminate money eventually, which you can do. Then you have no way to steal money from people. They will steal something else. And so a psychopath is just somebody who was born and raised to be this kind of professional cheat. Like in their genes and in their culture is how to always control the discussion in a way which makes them profit every day, every second. And you see it by the cost to other people. So the thing is, it's not a profit which is shared, it's always a profit made by taking. And you can see it in other people that they're always losing something. Losing sleep, or losing money, or losing peace, or losing, sometimes people get all kinds of damage. And there's a consistent percentage of people in the world who do like this, like a small number, like 4% of people who are like this all the time. So when you talk about, like, in community building, we have a part of our rulebook has become how to detect and deal with psychopaths. It's in our rulebook. Yeah, I call them bad actors, but that's what they are, psychopaths. And we get this now and then in zero-MQ community, people who are very strange. The thing is, you wouldn't see it in a normal organization, because normal organizations, they hide people's intentions very easily. It's very easy to fake your way in a company where there's no real measurement of your performance. Whereas when we do open source, every single thing you do is a patch, it's a pull request. You see right away someone's character from their code and how they respond. Right? It's like, if I want to test your personality, I'm not going to ask you questions, I'll play a game with you. Let's play poker. Then I'll know who you are. I will see how far you understand the rules, I'll see how far you cheat, I'll see how much you care about winning, I will see what happens when you lose. That kind of thing. I'll give you a strange game to learn and play, and I'll see your character. And so when there are very clear rules which make it very hard to cheat, people who like to cheat, they get angry with those rules. They either don't come, they disappear, or if they do come, they try to change the rules, or try to ignore them, or try to do something strange with them. So we see this kind of strange behavior in our communities. If you have no clear rules, that's much easier for psychopaths. Because they come in and they're like, hey, we're all friends, right? Yeah, I like your wallet. That's a nice wallet. Where'd you get that? Can I see it? No, that's a really nice wallet. Wow. I had one just like that, I lost it.
Yeah?
You didn't take my wallet, did you? All the project, or if they try to control it, they're kind of stupid because there's no money there. At a certain point, even a good project gets bigger, and if you're not equipped to deal with that, if you don't have some kind of a tool for understanding that and dealing with that, then you have real problems. So we saw this in our project, for example. Somebody would come in and start making long discussions and big contributions and very complicated contributions and argue them really hard, and people would be like, why are you making all this stress? Well, I have all these good reasons for that, blah, 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 long argument. And like, we never get any arguments in our projects, because nothing to argue about. You state a problem, you try to solve it, and if you don't like it, you make another solution, and you can always unmerge it. You can always make a new patch to remove another patch, and so there's very little argument in our projects. And so we have this now and then, people starting arguing about stuff. Like, that's interesting. Why are they arguing? Because they're not reading the rules. So I ask them, have you read the rules? They say, yeah, I read the rules, but the rules are shit. I'm like, that's interesting. Okay. So I give this guy like 3 months to show and to try to change, and he wouldn't change. And this is a particular case like last year. And so the community around this project gets more and more upset. And they're like, Pieter, we don't like this anymore. We're not having fun. This used to be fun, this is now not being fun anymore. Every day we get these long arguments, we get these long changes, these strange changes. And his code is ugly. Why is it ugly? I'm like, well, it's ugly because he doesn't give a fuck. And we have style guides. We have a book which says, this is how you write your code. He's ignoring it. So one of my friends says, I'll make a code reformatter. And I'm like, I don't think that's the answer. Plus, you've messed up all of my code now. It looks like something strange. So we undo all the code formatting. I'm like, if you can't make clean code, that's a good sign. I mean, I want to see that. I don't want that to be hidden. And so then, after a while, the guys in the project like, Pieter, what are you going to do? And I'm like, first of all, I have to change the rules, because the rules don't cover the situation. And I work by the rules. If I don't have a thing to point to in the rules, then I can't. I'm like the court system, right? I need to have rules. So I'm allowed to change the rules anytime I like, of course. That's also I like. So I hold a tribunal on email list, and I call for witnesses, and I allow the defendant to come and justify, and he of course just attacks everybody. It's all my fault. I'm like, okay, fair enough, you're now banned. And I document how to ban somebody. This is how you will ban someone. And I define a bad actor is someone who hurts other people and won't change when you tell them. You're hurting people, stop it. And if you don't read the rules and they blame you, then you ban them, make a public trial, then you ban their ass. And then his boss came and said, you were so rude to my employee. I'm like, oh, you're banned too. Get out of here. You're paying him to make a mess of our project. And this is somebody with a very clear agenda of creating chaos, and that's a bad sign. When someone wants to create chaos, it's because they want to disturb people and they want to be able to control the power and change things around. It's not just being clumsy or being, it's not like a form of autism or something. It's a strategic chaos. And you can see this in companies. You've seen this, all of you have seen this, but you didn't maybe put it into words. People who love to make a mess, because in the mess they're always in charge. And they love to blame everybody, and it's never their fault. They're always the innocent ones, the poor victims. You've not seen that?
Yeah.
You've seen it?
Me too.
Yeah, and it's a small number of people. It's a consistent number of people. It's not a random thing. And those people that do that will do that all their lives. In every job they're in, they'll do the same thing. In every relationship they're in, they'll do the same thing. They will do this from the day they are able to stand up and say, I am a young adult, when they're like, I don't know, 13, 14, they start doing this. Until they die, they're doing the same thing.
Do you say it's genetically, or do you think it can be also it's a strategy which also can be socially acquired?
It can't be acquired. So it seems to be genetic with cultural priming or calibration. So there's a very strong genetic component, like genetic talent has to be there. Like there is even, the brain is different. The brain is different, and you can do a brain scan and you will see, oh, there's this part of the brain is not there, or a different part of the brain is there. But there also must be some kind of a cultural training and preparation and a certain kind of switching on, triggering of certain talents.
So what I really found interesting on your side, how you described it really made me think a lot, as I also tend to get out in the night at the weekend, and it reminded me of something, how a psychopath gets the girls. It was really interesting. So as far as I understood it, the girls do not look for single persons, but they're looking for the group. So the psychopath goes to a group, checks out their tolerance, and makes some promises. And once he is inside the group and the girls are coming, he's bullying around a little inside the group of guys, and the girls see that and think, oh, this guy is interesting, and then the girls go to that guy, and he again abuses this game he has made in such a way, and goes on.
That's one way of doing it.
But it's really so. At that moment I said, wow, it's a really complicating thing to find out, and I had to remember the last weekend I was out and I was in a disco, and some guys came in a similar way to me, and I really asked myself whether I liked it or I did not like it, but I really thought it's a really complicated thing to find out. And how did he find that out? That was the question.
How I discovered this? I discovered this myself. One day. I mean, we're all slightly psychopaths at some point, but I was like in a random bar in Dallas, and full of young people, and I was like, okay, I don't know anybody here, and I was talking to these young guys. I do this a lot, talking to young guys. I mean, not young guys like that, but talking to men is fun, and it's one of my talents to be able to make a group of guys relaxed and happy and trust me very, very quickly. I've saved my life many times, which is not psychopathic. That's just dominance, as far as I can tell. But anyway, and I found this happened very easily. Was to go to a group of young guys who were there and say, "Hey, come to my table. We have space." And they were like, "Yeah, sure, Peter, that's fun." Not Peter, but where are you from? We talk for a few minutes only, and then they're very relaxed and they're young soldiers. And the story I told in my book is true. And then we're looking around and we're like, we need women. And there's these two very good-looking women signed there, and I'm like, hang on a second, guys. And I go up and I say, where are you girls from? And they're like, hi, if you can guess. And I'm like, oh, come and join us. And they look at this table and they're like, okay. We see this whole face of friendly, happy male faces. We feel comfortable, we feel safe. And I'm like, wow, that was way too easy. And that wasn't the best part. That wasn't the worst part. I was just realizing how easy this was. And so, because I had created the group of guys, and it was my table, and then I invited the girls, I was like the alpha male just sitting there just watching this, and the guys were buying the girls drinks, and everyone was really happy. We're chatting for like 2 or 3 hours. And then the bar closes, and these guys go home, and these two girls stand there looking at me, and I'm like, yeah, you can take a taxi. I'm not going home with you, this is just social. And then they're like, so how long do you know those guys for? And that was the funny part. And I'm like, I just met them, and they're like, oh, we thought you were like friends for years. And then I realized that in fact women have this really strange perception of relationships that men don't have. We have different ways of viewing relationships. When a woman talks to women at that level of friendship, they know each other for years. But men don't. We don't give a fuck. And so we can fake relationships that seem really, really deep to women, right? Really easily. We do this all the time. And it's a very easy thing to flip around and make into an abusive tool, which I don't do, but I can see exactly how that would happen. Yes. So just research.
Interesting research.
Trial and error. The thing is, it doesn't work unless you're either very, very dominant and aggressive and kind of bullshitty like me, or you're a psychopath. Because if you're a nice, modest guy, you can't make it work. It just doesn't work. You just look nervous and you look unhappy and you look stressful, and you're like, oh shit, I'm in trouble here. And then everyone sees you're looking in trouble, and so it's kind of weird.
So, your next book.
Is it about psychopaths? Yes.
Yeah?
Mhm.
Okay,
That's right.
interesting.
That's a lovely topic.
Because it never ends.
Sorry?
Because it never ends.
It never ends, but it's like, if you look at human society as a game, then in game theory you can even predict psychopaths. It's necessary.
I think it's interesting as I get the impression as current we are living in a world which has rules which pretty much ignores this subject, and I think it's really important if this is really a fact. I think it's really important to update many rules, so rule sets which people have in their minds. As of course, this makes it quite easier for psychopaths living in a world where all such rules are laid quite open, and they easily know how to manipulate this and take advantage of it.
So what psychopaths like are either no rules or bogus rules. So fake rules, rules that describe rubbish. What they don't like are good, transparent, accurate rules. That's like toxic to psychopaths. For example, a rule which says that, like if you look at a good example would be how you drive on the roads. You can actually tell a psychopath from how they drive. You can tell them. I mean, my daughter and I, we sometimes spot somebody driving in town, and we're like, oh, boom. And then the thing is, you see this person doing something, and then 2 minutes later, he does something really, really stupid. You can see it, like, and you're like, okay, you can see that from the first time you see this person moving. Like, their body language in the car is like off. They don't like the rules. They don't agree with the rules. They're offended by that whole system, and they will continue to fuck up. And they escape. They're escaping all the time. They're not getting accidents, but they're obviously good drivers, but they just don't like the rules. And so the whole concept of the regulation of the roads is designed to almost stop that kind of predatory driving. Everyone has a fair chance. You have to drive correctly. You have to drive the right way. If you have no rules, you have a very different situation. And there's because if you have predatory drivers, they cause accidents and it kills people. So that's kind of why we've accepted that. But there are other, like there's very little regulation of social relationships. Like you go to a nightclub and meet a woman or a man, whatever it is. There's no rule book for that. Nothing on paper except age limits and in some countries marriage. And that's possibly it. And there's nothing much else that goes on. There's not much taught in schools. There's not much regulation. If someone lies to you about their status, you can't go to the police. There's no criminal code covering this kind of relationship. And psychopaths love that. They love that. They can go and lie about all kinds of stuff and invent all kinds of stuff. It's a great place to be if you're a psychopath. So psychopaths don't like rules. And one thing about society is that we make better and better rules over time. I think that's interesting. We make rules systems which are increasingly accurate and documented and argued and transparent. And so even if there are psychopaths, they end up being controlled more and more and more. But they're always there. They don't go away. It's not like magically the whole thing disappears from our culture. It counts. And they get better at being different kinds of psychopaths. They hide in different places.
What if you're an employee and you have a psychopath on your team?
That's a good question.
You make him leave.
Well, no. It depends how important the job is for you, and it depends how important the team and the company is for you. So if you're an employee in a large company with a psychopath on a team, then you leave. Absolutely, you leave, you go somewhere else. It doesn't matter what they're paying you. You change teams, you change companies. If a psychopath is hurting your friends, then you have to expose them in one way or another, and you have to make sure that their boss understands where the problem is coming from. That's very difficult to do. So what's kind of what I'm writing a book is about how to manage that kind of person, which is possible to do. See, most psychopaths work like con artists. They work by lying and by manipulating reality and by controlling people's ways of thinking and behaving. And it always requires cooperation from the person, passive cooperation. So once you see that a certain person is doing so, you can actually switch off your response, and then they stop having any power over you. They can still threaten you. Give me your wallet or I will shoot you. And you're like, okay, I believe you. That looks really real. But you still know it's a lie. Right? So even if you have someone on the team who is systematically trying to cheat, it doesn't necessarily become a problem if you can educate yourselves to understand this person's behavior and why they're doing what they're doing. Right?
You talked about this guy that disturbed your community by being a bad actor. Are there some hard criteria to differ between a bad actor and someone who has simply another opinion?
Yes, very easy to find that. So a bad actor, I define this in my rulebook. A bad actor is someone who, first of all, by their behavior hurts other people. That's number one. So it doesn't matter what you do in the world as long as you don't hurt other people. Right? That's number one. And then, secondly, you can hurt people by mistake. So if you hurt people and you are told that you're hurting someone and you refuse to stop it repeatedly, then you're a bad actor. That's the definition. Like if let's say that I'm insulting you here, one by one, personally. I'm insulting you, I'm finding things that hurt you, and I do it with a big smile. And then at a certain point you say, okay Peter, you have to stop this. And I'll be like, nah, I'm enjoying myself, why would I stop this? That's a bad actor. Right? If you tell me one time and I'm drunk and I'm very tired, I may not listen to you. You tell me twice, now this is no longer friendly, this is now a serious warning. The third time that's it. Okay. So you can judge someone's effect on other people. You can't see from the person. The person doing damage is almost invisible. Almost invisible. Like that's one of the main core skills of a psychopath is to hide and not to be visible, and to look normal and to look happy and to look friendly and to look sociable. So you can't see. You cannot see. Only if you're very, very, very close can you see, and then it's probably too late. But you can see other people being hurt, and so that pain is really what you're looking for. And then you have to kind of try to find. It's like triangulation. You can almost see by the level of pain and who people are talking to, who's causing the pain. And then you can go to the person and say, look, you are not following some rules. I can actually now measure what you're doing. Now when I see you, I can actually see what you're doing wrong, and you have to change. And if someone's making an honest mistake, they will change. They will understand that. They will accept that. And if they don't change, then they're a bad actor. And after that, you don't really care what the motivations are. I mean, you're not their father. Right? You don't care. You have to protect your protect your friends and your investments, and that's where it stops. I think. Yeah. And I think it's actually, in the end, it's actually quite simple to do. Not. It takes a long time to do this, smoothly. But it's a bit like, I can say, look, how to build community. There's a certain way of doing it, right? There's a cookbook, and you can learn to cook with that cookbook. It will take you a year, 18 months to do it. You have to practice a few times, and then it becomes easier. The same with dealing with bad actors. It takes a while to learn how to not be affected personally and how to make a change in other people. But it's not really, really complex. I mean, it's a book, but not really, really complex. Right. You have bad actors. It's like a disease, So you have bad actors? Yeah, we all have bad actors.
go ahead, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
I had one who destroyed the team.
Yeah.
So
What?
I had one,
Yeah.
psychopath on my team, and we told the boss, actually, because we thought it was his duty to actually take some action.
What did you see? Or what were the symptoms?
Well, the symptoms were, well, it was really hard to argue with him. He wouldn't agree to anything we said as a team. He was very young and new in that area, and we told him we had more experience, so we told him to change some stuff,
Right.
and he wouldn't accept.
Right.
There was just too much noise, too much anger, and we had too much time not doing our work but arguing. So
Right.
we just went to our boss and tell him, and well, we had a bad manager at that moment, so he didn't really take action. So he destroyed our team.
Huh.
So 3 people went away, me including.
Because you left because you couldn't really work with them. It was impossible to.
Actually,
Yes. Yeah.
It wasn't the only reason, but it was one of the reasons.
And did you ever figure out what he wanted?
I don't know. I think the same thing everyone else wants. I think it's kind of he wants to be accepted, like me. He wants to be somebody tapping on your shoulders, saying that you're doing a good job there. I think that's all.
The psychopaths don't care about that normally. You see.
No?
No, they don't give a fuck.
What
They
do you
want
think?
to. They want to control things. They want to be in charge, and they want to have, or they're playing and learning, or they want to be in charge and have something. They want to extract something. Like there's no. If it's a psychopath, they don't care what other people think about them in that level. They do care about how they appear to other people,
Yeah.
but they don't actually care emotionally about people actually liking them.
Hmm.
That's just like, it's like, if I steal someone's car, why would I care if the car owner likes me? It's not logical. I'm stealing his car. Why? He's not going to like me. I don't need him to like me. I need him to not tell the police. I need him to think that he lost it. And possibly for him to argue with his wife and blame her. That's what I would do. That's better. But they pat in the back, normally. So maybe he was just a young, confused person. That happens as well.
Maybe.
Yeah.
The more that you think about it, is it easier for you to detect psychopath right now than maybe 2 years ago?
I think
Do you
so.
walk in a room and say psychopath?
Sometimes. Like I've seen people now, for example, especially in certain contexts where there's a very high frequency of active psychopath behavior, because psychopaths also hide a lot and you can't see them. When they're hiding, you simply can't see anything. So they have to be doing something. They have to be hunting, or they have to be working on somebody. They can't just be sitting there looking at their notebook. You can't tell, right? There's no little radar button. Because by definition, they're invisible. But when they're actually working on somebody, then you can see it. If you know what you're looking for, you can see it right away.
So you somehow trained your skills to detect those.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you had to guess, how is the percentage in our society?
Here, no one is psychopath.
No, not just here in the community.
In general society,
In general.
well, it's well known. I mean, if you look at clinically diagnosed, then it's 1%. But that's mostly men, and that's a particular criminal psychopath. So you can extrapolate. There's a lot more people who are not criminally convicted or criminally exposed, and an equal number of women as men. And I count 4% as being a good figure. Yeah. And some people go much higher, 10%. That seems extravagant.
So all bad actors do it on purpose, so they know exactly what they're doing.
No. It's often subconscious. It's often subconscious. It's often if you if you try to find the motivation, you may not find it. However, for example, if you observe them and they know you're observing them, they'll change behavior. So that maybe makes it conscious. I don't know. That's a hard thing because consciousness, even then, I mean, anybody, you like here, I throw the keys, right? So you catch the keys and then about you throw them back. About a quarter of a second after you catch them, you think that you decide to catch the keys, right? So your consciousness is actually like after your actions. I mean, anybody, you just believe that we're making decisions. That's probably a bad idea, and then it's fun though, but you're gonna break probably more than one object. So consciousness is a very strange thing there. You think that you're making decisions, if anybody, psychopaths as well. We mostly act on instinct and we mostly follow triggers, and now and then we like deliberately breathe or deliberately move our arms. Mostly it's happening by instinctive reaction.
So it makes a difference if the actors actually do it on purpose and do consciousness, or otherwise you have to bend them. For example,
I just said there's no such thing as consciousness.
Yes,
Now you're
there's no
bringing it back
idea
in.
that you can reform that.
I don't believe anyone does anything on purpose. That's just, I think that's not what I just said. I think that very concept is a self-deceit.
Because previously you said when you have these bad actors in your community, you ban them. You make the rules up so you can let them.
Yes.
And there's no need for reforming these people.
No, most people, no. So the thing is, the people that can reform do reform. The people who are able to adapt their behavior to, for example, about the quarter of people who come into the community and they contribute, make bad contributions. They obviously didn't read the rules, they obviously don't know what they're doing, and they do something and it's like, oh God, that's terrible. Come on, we have some basic standards. But no one says that to them. No one says this is terrible. What they say is, we merge your patch, then we fix it up, we show you, and then we say, maybe you want to read the rules, maybe you want to check the style guide, maybe you want to... And anyone who is motivated by being a good collaborator will be very happy to get that kind of feedback, will look at the rules and will follow them always. So they will self-correct, right? Bad actors do not self-correct. That's the big difference. You tell them and they're like, nah. Tell them again, they're like, nah. Tell them a third time and they're like, well, it's actually your fault. They took the blame onto you. You make it all someone else's fault. They don't self-correct at all. They continue in what they're doing because they're doing it not on purpose, they're doing it strategically. So why would they change? They're doing exactly what they have to do. Right? Yeah. So then you have to ban them. If you don't ban them, your community just goes away. It gets unhappy and leaves.
And what if the bad actors are those who make rules up?
Well, then they have no community. I mean, that's easy. I mean, look, the fact of arguing does not make you a bad actor. The fact of stealing does not make you a bad actor. The fact of making rules does not make you a bad actor. It's the fact that what makes you a bad actor is that you are hurting other people and doing it over time for your own profit. Right? So if your rules are hurting people, then you're being a bad actor, yes. If your rules are making people happy, then you're not being a bad actor. Right? So it's all about I think it's about the outcome rather than the way you get there. I don't like oversimplifying these things. They're complicated. You have to buy the book when it comes out.
You have to come again when the book is out.
Yeah, we'll do that.
Yeah.
We'll do that.
Nice
I think we're going to call it tonight. I have to get my daughter home. We're not staying in Bochum. She's going to school tomorrow. But,
So where are you going now?
back to Brussels. No, it's okay. It's only like it was a long drive because there's a lot of traffic.
3 hours? 3 hours back? Or?
Oh, I think we spent 4 hours to come here. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
3.5 hours it was, exactly 3.5 hours, yeah. So now we'll do 3 hours back. Should be okay. thanks for your questions, guys. It was fun to talk to you all.
Thank you very much.
Thank you
Thank you very much for coming.
If anyone wants to buy a book, this is the time. These are 20 euros, by the way, seriously. And I will sign them if you want.
Sure. Hast du Frage dabei? Super.
Super. Okay. 1 hour and 30 minutes recorded. Is that good? Yeah. Yes, yeah. Wat is cool? Jullie op internet. Dat is very good. Condenser maakt, we maken heel goede opnames. Oh, absolutely. Thank you.
Me too.
Okay, what's your name?
Renee.
Renee, how do you spell Renee? R-E-N-E?
R-E-N-E and then the
The next.